Hello, my name is Dennis, and welcome to my trailer park white trash mobile home kitchen. I really do live in a mobile home, in a trailer park, and this is my kitchen. At the request of one of the fans of my YouTube videos, I'm going to be making croissant from scratch today. She had actually asked for an easy recipe, and I wrote back and I said, easy is not an appropriate word when it comes to making croissant. They're a lot of work. In fact, I haven't made croissant since my college days, and I'm going to be using the same recipe that I hand written up on a 3x5 index card back when I was in college. So let's look at the ingredients that I'm going to use. I have here 3/4 of a cup of butter that I've cut into small cubes. You can use unsalted butter if you like. I'm using regular butter because the warehouse store is within walking distance of my home, so it's convenient. So that's 3/4 of a cup, which is 6 ounces or 170 grams. I'm starting off with 3 cups of flour, which is 16 ounces, 450 grams. I may be adding a little bit more when I get to the kneading stage, but I'm going to start off with this amount of flour. I have 3 tablespoons of sugar. If you're using unsalted butter, add 1 teaspoon of salt. I have 2 teaspoons of dry yeast, 3/4 of a cup, which is 175 milliliters of milk, 1/4 cup, 60 milliliters of water, 2 large eggs, and then finally 1 tablespoon of milk. Optionally, you can garnish your croissant before you put them in the oven by sprinkling them with poppy seeds or sesame seeds, etc. I'm not going to be garnishing mine. So those are the ingredients I'm using. I've taken out 1/4 cup, which is about 34 grams of my flour. I'm going to put that in a bowl and then put my butter in there. And then using a pastry cutter, which is going to make a bit of a mess, I'm going to cut these two together until they're well blended and I have a paste. I'm just finishing this off with a rubber spatula, kind of smearing this into the bottom of the bowl and turning it to make sure that I have a nice smooth paste there. Okay, so that's done. I put my butter on a sheet of parchment paper here. I'm going to put a second sheet on top, and just to be precise, I drew a line on this in pencil, and with the pencil line up so that I don't get any graphite into my butter, I'm going to smear this so that I have a 10-inch by 4-inch, what's that? That is 25 centimeters by 10 centimeters, a rectangle here. And I actually have a roller here that I can use to really get this precise. Because I like to be accurate, make sure that that's nicely smoothed out. And perfect. Isn't that nice? Okay, so there's my butter. Again, that's 10 inches by 4 inches, which is 25 centimeters by 10 centimeters. And then I have to chill this in the refrigerator for about 1 hour. I'm going to be heating my milk and my water. That's the 3/4 of a cup of milk and my water to about 110 to 115 degrees Fahrenheit. That's about 43 to 46 degrees centigrade. I'm going to do this in the microwave because I have one of these nice pans that a friend gave me. This is ceramic, and I can pop the handle off. So there I am at about 113 degrees. That's fine. I'm going to sprinkle my yeast over the top and then sprinkle some of my sugar over it and let that sink in, and that'll activate the yeast. This is why it doesn't really matter whether you use instant yeast or active dry yeast. I'm proofing it first. So with instant yeast, you can just dump it into your recipe and you don't have to worry about it. Active dry should be activated. That's what I'm doing here. I'm going to give that a stir just to dissolve that in, and if
a minute or two, that should be foamy. That's the indication that my yeast is alive and it's going to work fine in my recipe, which I know it will because I only bought it a couple of weeks ago. My yeast has all risen to the surface and is all nice and foamy, so that's nice. That means it's active and alive. I'm going to put about 1 cup of my flour in my bowl with the rest of my sugar and my yeast and milk mixture. And I want to combine all this. And now I can start working in the rest of my flour to make a dough. So I'm going to add about half my flour there. You could do this in a stand mixer, and better yet, a mixer fitted with a dough hook, which I will probably do because I've got a stand mixer, so why not use it? Because at some point this is going to become too stiff to work with a spatula. I've set up my stand mixer with a dough hook, and I'm going to start working in my flour. I have the remainder of my flour here. If I have to add more flour, I will. I might not even use all of this. It depends upon what the consistency of my dough is. I'm going to knead this rather slowly on the number of 2 setting here. Alright, so now there's my dough. It's nice and pliable. It's slightly moist. I'm ready for my next step. Now I need to shape my dough into a 12-inch square. Once again, I drew lines onto a piece of parchment paper. I'll turn that over so I don't get graphite on my dough. I'm going to dust that lightly with flour. And then start shaping my dough here. I'm going to work this by hand first. So finally, after all these years, I finally get to take the label off of my rolling pin. I've never used this. I'm always using my hands to roll things. So this is my first time using my rolling pin. Okay, I think that's a good enough start. And then I took my butter out of the refrigerator now. This has had an opportunity to chill. And I'm going to put that in the center of my dough. And then I'll be folding that in. I'm going to fold my dough over and then roll this back out again to a 12-inch square. And I'm going to do that 3 more times. So to do that, I'm going to dust this with flour and then start rolling my dough out this way. And then turn it and do the same thing again. So there's my dough. I've rolled this a total, folded and rolled a total of 4 times. So now what I'm going to do is lift this up and then place it on a sheet of parchment paper. Then I'm going to cover this with plastic and place this in the refrigerator for a total of 2 hours. This needs to chill for 2 hours. To make my egg wash, I broke my 2 eggs into a measuring cup. I'm going to put in that 1 tablespoon of milk. And this gives me a chance to use my rechargeable beater here. I got to thinking about this. I've got an electric drill. It's got batteries in it, but anyways. Simple enough. There's my egg wash. I'm going to set that aside, and then I'm going to start shaping my croissant. My dough has been in the refrigerator now for just over 2 hours. So I'm going to take out about 1/3 of this. It's amazing how useful a plastic knife can be. And then I'm going to start working with this. And meanwhile, put this back in the refrigerator and keep this chilled while I'm working with smaller pieces. I'm going to flour this lightly and then kind of press it down. I need to shape this into roughly a 12-inch circle. Just flour this well. And when the butter starts to creep through a little bit, I'm just going to flour that area. Okay, I've got this rolled into a 12-inch circle. Now, depending on how big you want your croissant to be, you can cut this into 8 pieces, or you can cut this into 6 pieces. I'm going to make some small ones, so I'm going to do this in 8 pieces first. Okay. And then with my pastry brush, I'm going to brush a little bit of egg onto these points, like so, and then start rolling. So again, my point is coated with egg there, and just start rolling up your dough and use that egg to hold that point in place, and then set it with the point on the underside, and then shape this into an arc. And that's my croissant. Okay, so let me do the rest of these 8, and then I'm going to do some 6s. Before I get to my larger croissant, I want to just brush these with egg wash. This will help them to have a nice brown color because I used milk, actually half and half, in the egg wash rather than water. The higher fat content will give me a little bit richer browning. Another way to cut these, since it's shaped round like a pizza, is use a pizza cutter. So I want to do these in 6 pieces, like so. And this will make a larger croissant. Again, I have a baking sheet prepped with parchment paper. And then roll this onto itself. And then with the point on the bottom, turn it around. And there's another croissant. So there are my croissants. I need to let these rise now for 30 minutes. These smaller ones were made by cutting the circle into 8 pieces, and then I have 6 really large ones that were made by cutting the circle into 6 pieces. I have to let these rise for 30 minutes, and then I'm going to heat my oven up to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. That's about 190 degrees centigrade, and I'm going to bake these for 12 to 15 minutes until they are nicely browned and are done all the way through. So, how do they look coming out of the oven? There are my croissants. Those are the smaller ones where I cut 8 to a circle. And then over here, these over here are the larger ones. Alright, so my last step now is to let these cool for a little bit and then break them open to see how flaky they are inside and then see how good they taste. So there they are. I want to break one of these open and see what it looks like on the inside. Beautiful, flaky. That is just stunning. That's a beautiful croissant. Finally, I'm going to taste this and see how good they taste. So there's the one that I broke open, nice and flaky inside. Very tender. A little light on the salt. But other than that, fantastic. So there they are, croissant. Excuse me, I'm going to go enjoy the rest of my croissant. For a printable PDF copy of this recipe with step-by-step photographs, visit the White Trash Cooking website and look on the home page or in the recipe archive.